Hey everyone, Madilynn Dale here, the chapter goddess. I am a mom, author, blogger, freelancer, podcaster, producer, and overall creative. With this show, I really want to focus on creatives and bring their authentic self to life. How are they motivated to pursue their passions? What have been the struggles along the way? Does self-care play an important role in who they are today and how they connect with the creative flow? Bringing one's authentic self to the forefront is important in this world that we live in currently. Sharing your self-care, your tips, and how you stay on track for things without losing it completely is also important. Self-care is not talked about enough, and authenticity and self-care are what I like to highlight with my creatives, as well as getting to know them. So get ready for a fun and entertaining show. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get ready to meet this episode's guest. Hey guys, and welcome to my live show this week. I have another fun guest for you guys to check out, to meet. We're going to be talking about his books, and there's quite a few. Here's just a few to check out. And he's got a new one dropping this Thursday, as a matter of fact. So don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, click on the link to his website, and pre-order his book. Like, check out his other work. I'm really excited to pick his brain because there's also some fun things we are going to chat about because of some of my loves for the fantasy world. But yeah, let me bring him in and let him introduce himself before I just give everything away. So, hey, JD, go ahead and tell our listeners and viewers about you and the books we have coming out this week and the one that you had recently dropped.
Hey, Maddie, thank you so much. It's exciting to be here. I appreciate everybody joining. And I'm really happy to tell folks a little bit about the books I've written and the crazy, insane things that come out of my head. Which is really all being an author is, in case you wondered. It's just dreaming up crazy stuff and putting it on paper. So thank you. I appreciate you having me. Right now, I've got a series of 5 books that is releasing, like you said, starting Thursday. It's called The Kingdom War. It's actually the first thing I ever wrote. I was probably 14 years old when I came up with the original story. I was sitting around the Dungeons and Dragons dice with my fellow nerd friends, and I wanted to stump them. I wanted to come up with a dungeon that they couldn't solve. And so I created this story, and I never did anything with it. I created a bunch of maps and all the stuff you do as a kid. And then it sat in a box. And about 2.5 years ago, we were right in the height of the pandemic when if you left the house, you turned into a tree, something crazy. And I couldn't do anything. I was stuck at home, and this story popped into my head just out of the blue. And so I decided to run to my office. I wanted to write it down so I didn't forget it because it had been like 30 years since I'd thought of it. And I typed it all up, and about 3 months passed, I had written a novel, which is insane because that was not the plan.
Yeah.
And a kid from next door, one of our neighbor's kids, was at the house, and she picked up the stack of papers. It was a manuscript. By the way, I didn't even know to call it a manuscript. I was that much of a rookie. And she asked if she could take it home and read it. And the next morning, her mom called and said, "Have you written book 2? She wants to know what happens next." And I thought, I might be able to do this. This is crazy. So I left a 20-year career in finance, not using my creative brain at all, and am now a full-time author. That book, Air of Magic, was the very first book. It really, honestly, wasn't up to par from a writing standpoint. And so I pulled it from the shelves, scrubbed it through a bunch of developmental edits, got new covers, like everything. Did all the right stuff. to bring
Yeah.
it up to my peers, and that's why we're doing a re-release, and I'm really excited to have folks take a look at it.
Yeah, and the re-release cover for that is this one, right?
Yeah.
And it's gorgeous. Like, I love it. And
Thank
for
you.
you guys like watching, you can check out some of the synopsis here. And I'm excited to check it out myself. I mentioned to you before the show that this one is definitely on my TBR list. So
Awesome.
let's go ahead and talk about the genre and the world and just kind of like the basics of the story.
Yeah, so this is fantasy. This is epic fantasy. So it's kind of right down the middle of the lane of low magic, classic epic fantasy. I have, and that's the fun thing to me, is getting to create a world, getting to create magic, it's not just about the story. It's more about the characters and the richness of the world. And so I had a lot of fun doing that piece of it. The story is, it starts out really as a kidnapping mystery. One of the main characters gets kidnapped. Another main character happens to be an investigator, and his magical gift is being able to tell when someone's telling the truth. Everybody has a different magical gift. That's the magic system. And so he goes on this quest to try and find the kidnapped woman and save her. Well, he learns along the way that kidnapping is a very tiny piece of a much larger plot to bring back a long dead evil queen and overthrow the world. Small. And so that's where you go in the next, really over a 4 or 5 book cycle, is you go from a very simple sort of murder, kidnapping, mystery plot to a much broader good versus evil. Can the good guys save the world against the bad woman? There's one really bad woman, and she's she's who's on the front cover, by the way.
Ooh, yes.
And
all of this came from the inspiration of a D&D game, right?
Yeah, it all came from D&D. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. I love it. That game is really actually one of the most inspiring role-playing games I think I've ever known to inspire authors, because a lot of authors have drawn inspiration from that and just role-playing games in general.
So I don't go down the route of all the different races. So I don't have elves and dwarves and all that kind of thing. It's basically a human world.
Yeah.
There are some mystical creatures, so you do get a little bit of the fantastic, but I think D&D inspired my imagination as much as it did anything specific. And it got me to think about, got me to fall in love with losing myself in a crazy world that I wish existed, but doesn't. Maybe exists on another planet somewhere. We hope.
Maybe another realm.
That's right.
One of our viewers that's hanging out with us today, thank you for joining us, April. She has a question for you. How do you release so many books so quickly? Beautiful cover, by the way.
Thank you, April. And you drink a lot. No, I'm kidding.
Coffee and wine, right?
That's right. So look, in fairness, these are not books that I just wrote. If I had just written them and I'd kind of banked them and I was doing a rapid release, that would be painful and awful. And I've tried that before and it's really bad. These are books that I wrote 2 years ago. And really the last one I think I wrote maybe a year ago. So it took a course of a year and a half that I pulled, and now I'm re-releasing. So it's much easier to do a release that way. I'm not having to meet a writing deadline and then editing deadline and all the other things that you have to do to release a book. So I know it sounds like it's really crazy and hairy, but it's not as bad as it sounds.
Yeah. And since you started writing that first book, did you kind of develop a writing routine to finish out the series?
Oh, absolutely. And it's opposite what, I'm not a morning person. I hate morning. I'm the guy who will throw his alarm clock when it goes off. I hate mornings. But what I've learned, and I hate to, I'm admitting this publicly, so forgive me. My best writing time is in the morning. It's really sick. So I am now, thanks to my dogs, getting up at 7 o'clock and coming straight into my office and starting to write. And I've also learned that I can't just sit down and write for 3 or 4 hours. My brain will be fried by the end of that, and the writing will be bad. Or I'll end up going down the Facebook rabbit hole and not get anything done. So if I can do 3 45-minute to an hour sprints throughout the day, I'll write 1,000 to 1,200 words per sprint, and that'll get me to 3,000 to 3,500 words by the end of the day. And my goal is 3,000 a day. That if I can do 3,000 a day, I've had a good day. So that's my routine. And in between those sprints, I'll take the dogs to the dog park and give my brain a break, or I'll work on marketing stuff, which any authors on the Zoom or on the broadcast know is like all consuming for us.
Yes.
Because as an indie, you literally do it all. And that piece is, nobody teaches you how to do that. So you kind of have to fumble your way through it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of books out there too that you can kind of like utilize bits and pieces of. I say bits and pieces because not all of it applies to each author and what they're trying to achieve, which kind of trying to find that is also a lot of time.
Yeah, especially when you peel it back and you look at each genre and subgenre. What works for a fantasy author will not work at all for a romance author.
Oh yeah.
And what works for an epic fantasy author might not work so well for somebody doing dark fantasy.
That's true.
So it's really a challenge of getting to know, first you got to get to know your readers, because the writing has to be what the readers want to read.
Yeah.
And then you got to get to know how to put it in front of your readers so they even know you exist.
Yeah.
And each genre is different there. So it really is, that's tough.
And also, so I'm going to kind of switch gears here, go back to your book a little bit.
Okay.
I want to know more about your characters. Let's talk about the main characters of your story. Who are they, and where did the inspiration to put them together come from?
Okay, so the big bad, we'll start with her. She's on the cover of the book. That's Irina. I shouldn't say this. Irina came from someone I used to work with. Much of her personality is this person I used to work with. So thank you to her for inspiring me to write a character. Sorry, it was that one. So that's Irina. She actually grew up, and you see in the prequel, which is The Rise of Irina, you learn that she was actually a healer as a young person, and she wanted to do good. She was like the ultimate good person.
Yeah.
And a lot of really, really bad stuff happens along the way, and she doesn't realize she's turning evil, but she starts doing bad things, and it kind of gets addictive, and then she becomes who she is. And that was 1,000 years ago. And when she comes back, she's really mad because she got banished for 1,000 years. So the wheels come completely off the bus. Yeah, she laughs like that too, by the way. The good guys, which I hate to say good versus evil, because one of the things I love most about working with characters and character development is if a character is all good or all bad, I've done a really lousy job.
Yeah.
Because I don't know anybody who's all good or all bad. Even though I like to think I'm, one of the good guys, I have days when I have dark thoughts, or when I don't do the right thing, or whatever. I think we all do. And so to make the characters as relatable and as real as possible, they need to have those layers. They need to think bad thoughts. They need to do dumb stuff. And they need to do bad stuff sometimes. So our two main male characters are brothers, Keelan and Declan. Keelan's the older brother. Declan is 5 years younger, and Keelan is the investigator. Declan is one of the few people in society born without a gift, without any magic. And so he grows up very resentful. In this society, having a gift is such a big deal. The people with a gift wear these golden collars. And so you can spot them. If they have magic, you see them very clearly wherever they are. And it's a societal status.
Yeah.
And so Declan grew up as an outsider, even in his own home. They lost their parents at a very early age, kind of the orphan fantasy thing.
Yeah.
And they end up being raised in the Mages Guild.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're surrounded by magic, steeped in magic, golden collars everywhere, and this poor kid doesn't have any magic.
Oh.
And so that's his journey over the course of the 5 books, is discovering himself and getting past his bitterness and all the things that come along with a lost boy growing up. And I say boy, he's 19 in the beginning.
Yeah. So kind of young man. And thank you, Miss Queenie, for joining us. We appreciate you. So he goes through a lot of character growth then from start to finish.
He probably has the broadest character arc of anybody in the books.
Mm-hmm.
Irina certainly has a growth arc. There's 2 major nations in play, the one that Keelan and Declan grow up in, and then the one across the border that's called the Kingdom. It has a longer name, but for the sake of this, it's the Kingdom. Mm-hmm. There is a crown princess over there who runs away and ultimately gets kidnapped and kind of gets thrown into this master big picture plot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what brings the 2 nations to the point of war.
Ooh.
That's where you get the Kingdom War.
Yeah.
The Jess, who is the princess, she is one of the other main characters that flows throughout the entire series. And her growth arc is as big as Declan's. And they're probably the 2 primary sort of growth arc characters that you see a lot of. Keelan stays basically the same. I mean, he goes through a lot of stuff, but he doesn't really... He's 26 when the story begins. Mm-hmm. His character is pretty much baked. So you really just enjoy seeing the growth of other people through Keelan's eyes more than seeing him grow.
Yeah. Which is not a bad thing, because that's kind of, sometimes that's what makes the story more interesting, is
absolutely
to see the things change around you.
Yeah. What I tried to do, I tried to create, it's really 3 main storylines that go on throughout the book, throughout the series, I'm sorry. And they don't intersect until the end of book 1. So you really have 2 storylines kind of going back and forth throughout book 1, and they come together at the end of book 1, and now you have one really big storyline. Think of it like a giant pipe going forward through the other 4 books. Jess and her storyline are one of them. Keelan and the investigation is another. And then at the end of book 1, Declan's story kind of takes its own turn, and he actually goes from being a side character to a main character throughout the rest of the series.
Ooh.
And I'm going to steal a question from you. Declan's my favorite character.
Yay!
I love all my children equally, but Declan's my favorite.
Oh, and so go ahead and elaborate. Why does he stand out over the others for you?
Oh God, I guess I see myself in Declan. Mm-hmm. I mean, I see myself in all the characters, even the bad one, because that's just what writers do. We put ourselves on the page. But I don't know. Declan just became a friend.
Yeah.
And the days when I had a really good writing day, I would just close my eyes and give my mind over to the characters and watch them act out the scene. And I just took dictation. I didn't write. Mm-hmm. And the scenes with Declan, he took over. Like, he took the scene and he acted it out in my mind. And I saw him doing what he does. And I don't know. I just really like him. He's a complex character. And the more I wrote him, the more... Going in, I intended Keelan to be the main character throughout the whole series. Mm-hmm. By the end of book 1, it was like, okay, Keelan's in it, but Declan's my guy.
Sorry about you. Scoot over. Here's
That's right.
New main character.
That's right.
Gosh. So with the writing and everything, and this kind of like starting up during the pandemic, did you have a specific self-care routine that kept you focused and motivated to finish out the series?
Oh God, I'm terrible at that. I would love to say yes, but my self-care. So my career before writing
Mhm.
was in finance, and I worked, 12-hour days. It was normal. And so working a lot is just what I'm used to.
Yeah.
I thought when I went full time as a writer, I would work less. I don't. I probably actually work more. It's more flexible. Like if I
Mhm.
want to take the dogs to the dog park at 10 o'clock in the morning, I stop what I'm doing and we go to the dog park.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that before,
True.
but I'm writing at 9 o'clock at night if I do that.
Mhm.
I'm making up for it. I can't miss my schedule. I got to stay on schedule if I'm going to publish, and I'm going to publish enough to make a living. I mean, it's just this is
Yeah,
our business.
it is.
So I'm lousy at taking care of myself. I guess the best, I say that I'm actually pretty good at taking a break when I need one,
Mhm.
in fairness. And the dogs make me do it. I have 3
Yeah, I was
Australian
gonna say the
Shepherds.
dogs help a lot, it seems like.
Yeah.
So
They're therapy. I have 3 Australian Shepherds. They need a lot of exercise. They need a lot of attention. They demand attention. So they make me take breaks, and that's good for all of us.
yeah. And it gets you outdoors and lets you see more things around you, and it can probably helps
Oh
create
yeah.
inspiration for world building too.
Oh yeah. I mean, there are characters built after my dogs and after other dogs at the dog park and interactions I see at the dog park. Look, if you're around me, you're fair game. I'm sorry.
Yes. I feel like that's true for any author.
Oh yeah.
So, any friends, anybody watching, like, yeah, you guys may accidentally end up in a story or put into a
Oh, there's no
character.
accident. No, you're in it.
Yeah.
I put you in.
Have to be
Yeah,
honest,
so
I did
I've
that
gotten
with some
into I used
coworkers
to do this a
too.
lot, and I kind of fell out of the habit with the pandemic because you couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But I will now, like, go to a restaurant with my laptop and sit there and write, or I don't go to go to Starbucks as much as I used to,
Yeah.
but I'll go to a place like that and write, and it's amazing how much, like, it makes me focus because I've got to shut everybody out. But at the
Yeah.
same time, when I sit back and I look around, like, I'll find characters.
Yes.
Like, I'll watch people at their table and how they're talking and how they're interacting with each other, and it will shape how I form a set of dialogue. And so it's really inspirational. So all you people that I did that to, I'm sorry first, and thank you.
No apologies from me, guys. I'm sorry. I waited tables for years. And so getting to stand back and see all those people during the day, during my shift, made for some interesting
Oh, I can't even imagine.
stuff. And just events that happen between interactions with them, especially like I think I've used it in a story. I can't recall off the top of my head which story, but there was an incident with a lady who said her piece of pie was too small. And at the time, we were using a pre portioned pie cutter. Like it was perfect. Like everything was measured out and everything. Like we bought it that way. And it's just like, okay. And like she screamed at the girl that brought the pie to her. And I had to go out there and deal with her because it was like, okay, this sucks. But she ended up becoming an evil character, influenced evil character in a story for me. It's just like, okay, it's just
Did you have a pie scene?
I did have a like scene in a restaurant. I have a couple because they kind of I don't know this the whole environment made it into several books. It's also in the restaurant businesses where I met my husband, so it just like it has to pop in there at some
There
point.
you go.
So
Well, and it's just relatable too. I mean, it's
yeah,
a scene that everybody's been a part of.
yes. So moving forward with you releasing or re-releasing this new series, what do you have planned for after?
Yeah, so the summer's absolutely insane, because Air of Magic comes out Thursday,
Mhm.
and then book 2, which is called I renamed book 2. It's called Ungifted. I'll give you 3 guesses which character it's really about. Declan doesn't have gift,
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's Ungifted.
Yeah.
So book 2 comes out June 6th, and then book 3 comes out June 18th, and book 4 comes out July 11th, I think. And then the box set comes out in September.
Mhm.
So that's a lot of releasing. At the same time, I'm working on the second book in my second series. So I released the first book of it, which is called The Rising Sun, which I have right here. It is, think of it as a Game of Thrones type epic fantasy set in an ancient Japanese, ancient Asian culture. So you've got all of the Japanese, mostly Japanese, even though I steal from some Korean and some Chinese cultural references. But you've got the families who, and in Japanese culture, especially the ancient culture, the Hans are constantly fighting each other for supremacy, trying to take the throne. There's that whole warlord thing going on.
Yeah.
But my fantasy twist is there is magic in the world, magic is a gift from the gods. And so you have the ancient Japanese kami, which is their pantheon. And the magic was given to them by the gods, and the vehicle is through the emperor and the emperor's dragon. And as long as the emperor is alive, magic is tethered to the world of man. Ooh. But if the emperor dies, so does his dragon, and so does magic. So the line of succession becomes really important.
Yeah.
And so there is this, the plot of the series is, the bad guys decide, it's one of the Hans, one of the families, they decide they want to try and do the war thing and take over the throne. Okay, not a new plot. But in doing so, they don't know about the tethering of magic, because that's one of those things that's really only closely held by the emperor and the people around him. And so they start killing off the line of succession. Oh my gosh. And so now magic becomes threatened, and lots of bad stuff can get released if the magic isn't there. Because not only do you have the good magic in the world, you have bad magic that's being held back.
Yeah.
That if the tether is gone, that bad stuff gets to come out. So, I mean, it's really, I'm having a lot of fun with this series, and I'm in the middle of writing book 2. Book 1's been out, like I said, since January. And so I hope to have book 2 finished this summer for a fall release.
You're going to get there. Like, I can already tell you're motivated to get it out. So it's like, oh, yes. So with that on the horizon and the books you've got now and everything, my final question for you is, what would you define as success for you in your writing career?
Yeah. So look, everybody wants to be George R.R. Martin or pick your favorite, author who's made it big time and got TV deals and movie. Everybody wants that. Of course, I would love to have that. So Netflix, if you're watching, got you. But I mean, realistically, I want to pay my mortgage. I want to replace that income from my prior life that I left to do this passion. But more than anything, I mean, what feeds me day to day is, and I didn't expect this. I was really kind of afraid of reader interaction when I started down this path. I thought, to say I have fans, it's just weird. Like, I'm just, that's just so strange.
That's what happens.
So. I mean, who would want to be a fan of me? That's just weird. But what I've learned is my absolute favorite part of this whole thing is not even the writing. It's the emails. It's the Facebook messages. It's an email I got from a woman in New Zealand and I didn't even know I'd sold books in New Zealand at that point.
Yeah.
Who said her son was really struggling to kind of find himself, felt like an outsider, and he read about Declan. And it helped him feel better and kind of take his next steps. And I'm not writing a book about motivation or life change. This is fantasy. But that fueled me for the next week. Like, I had that email printed and taped up on a wall. I mean, it was amazing.
That is.
So, I mean, success takes a lot of different shapes.
And I was totally wrong because I have one more question to ask you. I totally forgot to bring it up earlier because I said I was going to do it before. And it was about the Audible narration. So tell our viewers a little bit about who you've got doing your Audible narration.
Yeah, so I was scrolling through Facebook one day, and one of my buddies who writes fantasy, I noticed he had gotten this really famous narrator to narrate one of his books. I was like, how on earth did you do that? Like, you're nobody. Like, you're like me. Nobody knows who you are. And so I pinged him real quick, and he said, oh, he was so cool to work with. Here's his email address. Just reach out. He's like, he's the pretty one at the prom nobody asks to dance because everybody thinks they're the pretty one. Like, they're not going to say yes. So I reached out, and Peter Kenny is his name. He recorded all of the books for the Witcher series. And he's world class. Like, he's like Sean Connery doing audiobooks. Yes. He's that level. He's insane. And we traded a couple of emails, and next thing I know, Peter's like, yeah, of course I'll record your books. And I'm so speechless. So I got the Master of Air of Magic back about a month and a half ago. It's now live, even though the book doesn't launch until tomorrow or Thursday. So if you want to check out Peter, if you want to see a sample or hear a sample of Peter, if you go to my website at jdruffin.com, you can hear a free chapter of Peter doing Air of Magic. If you want to grab it, it's already up on Audible. He's amazing. I mean, he's just... Yeah. So why is he amazing? When you read a book, you want to hear every character have their own voice. You want to hear them distinct and different, and you want to hear the dialogue be real, like they're going back and forth and they're really talking. You don't want it to be stilted or sound like a recording or somebody reading a book. Peter brings life to these characters. Like, he's just crazy. He's so good. So I am super, super excited about that. Add to that the Witcher books. I mean,
yes.
I mean, come on. They're a big Netflix hit. I mean, forget the whole controversy with Henry Cavill and whether he's coming back for season 4. Henry, I'm mad at you.
Yes, I agree.
The reality is that's just like a whole nother level of ball that I never thought I would even get to watch in person. And here I've got Peter doing these books, so I'm a little giddy. If I fanboy out a little bit, sorry.
I don't blame you. I'm like fangirling. Like, it's amazing. I listened to a majority of that series on the Audible version. I got to hear his voice there, and just like,
oh yeah,
wow.
So Maddie, Peter sent me an email. I was kind of nagging him about when are you going to get book 2 done, because I'm excited. And he wrote me back. We had kind of an exchange, and then Tuesday he wrote me back out of the blue, and he said, hey, I just want you to know I was sitting in a cafe the other day marking up your manuscript, and book 2 has, and these are his words, all the feels because I teared up in the middle of a cafe. This is Peter Kenny. Oh my goodness, Peter shed a tear for me. So yeah, I'm so psyched.
That is awesome. And that means it's going to affect us readers just as much. So.
Oh, I love making you cry. I really do.
Yes. Awesome. Well, JD, go ahead and tell our listeners and viewers where they can follow you and where they can find you and check out all your work.
So I am everywhere you want to stalk anybody. So if you go to Facebook, I'm author J.D. Ruffin. If you go to Instagram, I'm author J.D. Ruffin, because I'm very original. If you go to TikTok, I'm author J.D. Ruffin. If you go to Pinterest, if you go to you name it, just type in author J.D. Ruffin. If you want to go to my website, it is jdruffin.com. And you can find me everywhere on Amazon, Audible, and all the normal sites where you would buy books. Barnes & Noble has all the paperbacks as well. Ooh, and if you are a bookstore or a library, wink, wink, I'm available in Ingram, in the Ingram catalog.
Yes, I love Ingram and the fact that they can do that. You guys, here is another look at the books and the website if you need it. Pretty simple to check out and follow. Also, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, show us some love, and check out both of our books. You can find all of mine at my website, thechaptergoddess.com. And JD, once again, thank you for hanging out with me.
Awesome, Maddie. It's so much fun. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to get future notifications when shows come out. Also, be sure to check out my website, I have a blog featuring this creative with some other fun and interesting questions. You can also subscribe to my newsletter there to stay up to date with all things the Chapter Goddess and Madilynn Dale. Once again, thanks for watching and have a great rest of the day.